Hello everyone. Today I am going to speak on PM Modi's economic policy in historical perspective. I view the current reforms initiated by the PM Modi's government, particularly from September 2019 onward, based on my professional participation in 20 years of reforms from roughly 1988 to 2009. The most significant set of reforms since 1990s. I believe that these are, but could be even more significant than the 1990s reform if the commitment to and spirit of reforms is maintained. From a macro perspective, there are four noteworthy features of the current reforms undertaken under PM Modi. First is a change in philosophy. Second is a change in institutional and policy approach. Third is that it's much more information and knowledge based. And finally, underlying it, there is a vision of the 21st century elements which we know of in the world economy, etc. So first, let us take up the change in philosophy. I think there is a basic change in philosophy from a communist socialist type of thinking which characterized much of the first few decades of the Indian economy to a more market economy and a modern welfare democracy. So there is a perspective, a philosophical change underlying the current reforms. And to some extent, this is trying to combine the best in the world with our own Indian experiences and democratic constraints, which are very different from many other countries. The key elements of this change in philosophy are the creation of a competitive market economy, a government provision of higher quality public goods. So it's not just a matter of quantity of public goods, but also the quality. And modern regulations and regulatory system which is suitable for the 21st century. I would say this change is somewhat incomplete. I would call it a work in progress. And finally, the fourth one, which is the well-targeted welfare transfers, which is basically designed to promote ease of living for the lower two-thirds of the population. The second major change which I mentioned is institutional perspective. There's a change in approach from the government being a director of economic policy, of economic everything, to a facilitator. The second element of this is a comprehensive and systematic liberalization. That is going sector by sector, production and service sectors, for example, agriculture, space, atomic energy, BPO, drones, geomapping, you name it, every sector, one by one, sector by sector, so it's comprehensive. Second, factor market liberalization, which had been neglected since the 1990 reforms, were very bold step, but the factor markets were ignored. So finally, of course, IBC started earlier, but new things which have happened since September 2019 include the labor code, bad bank. These are all related to factor market reforms. Sometimes we refer to it financial sector as one element of this. Then government services. So public sector reforms, privatization, monetization. Again, a comprehensive reforms of the public sector, introduction and a more stronger pursuit of PPP wherever it is applicable and useful. And then the third element is the improvement in the attempt at least to improve ease of regulatory compliance and to reduce the cost of doing business. The common word we use is EODB, ease of doing business. But this has two elements which I mentioned just now. And finally, the result of all this, it is hoped, and all leading up to make India a globally competitive economy. The third broad element of the reform, the change in reform, is that it is more knowledge based, more information based than it has been for several decades earlier, for several years, almost a decade earlier. So openness to information and accumulated knowledge of stakeholders, listening to the stakeholder, listening to those who have current day-to-day information and knowledge about what is going on. Concentration with producers, job creators, wealth creators in every sector and industry. So gathering the information, gathering the knowledge of people who are in the business, and then more openness. Again, this is a work in progress. There is a marked change, openness to advice or from anyone who can promote faster, who can help advise and promote faster, inclusive, sustained growth. However, one knowledge gap remains to be filled, and I will come back to that after giving the overall perspective. So, the underlying vision. The important element of this is the recognition that science and technology is really the driver of productivity. So, science and technology has an important role. Entrepreneurship as wealth and job creator. This is a very, very important key vision that you must have often heard that 75 to 90% of the economy is informal sector, and more than half of this is self-employed people. So it's a change, it's a change from the ordinary self-employed to entrepreneurs, key role of tech startups. So coming from really the 20th century entrepreneurship to a 21st century type of entrepreneurship. The third element of this underlying vision is a digital economy. So the importance, the recognition of the importance of the digital economy, the digital interface, the digital everything and really this is critical to fast inclusive growth, particularly in the next 5 years or so. And then classic public health issues. Everybody has talked about health, but the thinking was more directed toward personal health, what is called. It's not a question of who supplies, whether it's the government which supplies the health services or the private sector. What I'm talking about, a change in perspective from the personal, health. If I have a heart attack, can I go to a health center or clinic? But more to the public health issues, the classic public health issues like clean water, sanitation, sewage, which is very important. And finally, the green economy, the future. Though here there is a caution that we must not rush into it, the incentive must be put in place. But these four elements of the vision are very important for the future. Now, I mentioned earlier that there was one element of information and knowledge, there was a knowledge gap. Because few understand the underlying invisible interlinkages between different elements of macroeconomy. Everybody understands micro because you can see it. You can see if you raise a price, people will buy less. That's the microeconomy. Macroeconomy, there are many linkages which many people do not see. So the result is that there are few champions of macroeconomic reform, very few. But it is a good example of this one neglected macroeconomic reform, in my view, is most important and critical example of this is taxation. And you might say that, well, GST reform is one of the best reforms that we've had. Why do you say this? And the point is that tax economics is a very specialized subject, which many economists don't seem to understand, as shown by their uninformed criticism. I recently was speaking at an occasion, and my good friend of mine, who is also a very good economist and has served in many high positions, was just did not understand what the corporate tax reform was. So let me talk a little bit of corporate tax reform to give you a picture of what was not understood. Even by an economist, a known, renowned economist, is not a tax expert, is not a tax economist. So what was the basis of corporate tax reform? September 29, very bold reform in September 29. So the elements which made us push for this reform for many years, I mean, I and some of my friends who know tax economics have been pushing this. So one is that the world data showed a Laffer curve type of effect. That is, if we plot the international corporate tax rates, around 20, there was a peak at around 20 to 23%. We plot the revenue from the corporate tax against the rate at the bottom. And the states, the countries which had rates of 25 and higher, actually collected less proportion of corporate tax. So a Laffer curve. The second was that based on this, we took a cautious approach and we recommended that we have a 25% revenue neutral rate. So reduce the tax rate to 25%. The argument being that beyond that, you actually don't raise any revenue. You just make the tax more inefficient and you discourage activity. But this was revenue neutral. What does that mean? We also simultaneously urged eliminating all exemptions and deductions. That is what happened. It was a revenue neutral tax reform. It was not as if the rates were lowered. The average rate collection in normal times would still be the same. It's not a reduction. It's revenue neutral. It's more efficient. So this is something which tax economists understand, but many other trained economists do not even understand the meaning and purpose of this revenue neutral. And finally, the 15% rate was an incentive rate. That was a surprise even to me, but I think for the short-term incentive, again, we have experience from many countries, what are called the NICs, the miracle economies. In the 60s and 70s, they tried many policies, and one of the lessons from these policies was that small temporary incentives work as signals. So that is exactly what has been done. A 15% corporate tax incentive for manufacturing for a number of years, 3 to 5 years only. After that, this will go away. So it's like a signal. What we know from Indian experience is if you give large incentives, subsidies for long periods of time, it just becomes a corruption signal. It's no longer a signal where people come in and then become efficient. So all these elements, just to give you an idea of what lies behind the tax reform, it's just not get up one day and reduce the rate. Now, the sad part is the reduction of corporate tax, the CIT, revenue has reduced during pandemic, not because this proves that it was not revenue neutral. I mean, again, this is a lack of understanding on the part of people. In a pandemic, all economic activity reduced, all revenues reduced and will reduce everywhere in the world. It has nothing to do with the tax reform. So when we get back to normal is when you will see how revenue neutral the tax was, how it simplifies, how it provides an incentive for voluntary compliance, and how the revenues increase. Not during pandemic. It is silly, I'm sorry to say this, it is silly of people to say, oh, look at the revenues of CIT during the pandemic, it was a disaster. That's stupid, actually. Now, GST tax reform. Now, again, I mentioned GST, that this is one of the reforms which had been done, but I still say there is a lack of understanding. Why? So, excellent CIT reform was not being followed by equally radical GST. See, you will hear people say GST is radical reform. In fact, I have myself asserted for several years, and I still insert, that this was the biggest change, the most fantastic change in the Constitution, the economic elements of the Constitution in our history. So that stands. It was very bold political constitutional reform, there's no doubt about it. But the structure of the reform, of the GST is too complicated. We'll say a little bit more about this. And then direct tax code and import tariff reform. These all need reform. The direct tax code has not been reformed for decades and decades. The import tariff reform, the last reform occurred around 2002 and has not happened since then. So what is the problem? I think the GST Council is too focused on short-term revenue maximization. So they look at it in micro. Oh, if we increase the rate on this car or that element, we will get more revenue. It's narrow, micro-focused and over-focused on the short-term revenue. Not enough focus on long-run efficiency and revenue buoyancy. What is the impact of the structure of taxation on long-term efficiency, On long-term revenue buoyancy, as GDP increases, you get more per unit of GDP increase or less. Current macro condition. Now, this is a new thing. This is because of the pandemic. There's been a big decline in the private consumption. The expectations, the fears have the expectation and private consumption has not recovered as much as other things have recovered. So current macro conditions also have to be taken in account in the current reforms that one is recommending. So what I'm changing, for decades and decades, I have argued for revenue neutral reform. So for the first time, because of this macro situation that prevails now, I recommend revenue negative GST simplification, because it's needed to provide a consumption stimulus to the economy and quickly restore lost jobs and wages. The irony is that if you do it, this short-term loss in revenues will quickly be recovered by a quicker recovery in the overall consumption and GDP. And we need to do this because of the suffering during the pandemic. It makes it more important to do a revenue negative GST reform and simplification. Customs tariff. So that is another element which is pending. Custom tariff simplification. So we need a reduction in the number and dispersion of tariff rates. That's a standard recognized way to reform, which we carried out from 1990 to 2000 roughly. But then in fact, I chaired a committee after that and laid out a phased program of further reform in custom duties. And for 20 years, nothing has happened on this front. So the time has now come from this, because this will also complement the excellent PLI reform and the push of the new government, which I'm very happy at, to sign FTAs with UK, Australia, EU and USA. I was opposed to the RCEP, joining RCEP, because the presence of a monopolist and asymmetric behavior of China. But the FTAs with UK, AS, Australia, EU, USA are very important, because they will help us join the supply chains, which are basically internal supply chains of the MNCs. So they attract MNCs, join supply chains, increase efficiency and exports. So, and they will help push this reform of customs tariff will promote labor intensive exports, job creation and wage growth. And to do that, the textile, for example, textile GST always discriminated against artificial fibers, artificial fabrics, and the customs duty, there are like 10-15 different rates of customs duty on all elements of the textile sector. So if you simplify both these, the customs tariff along with the GST, which I've already mentioned, then you can get a huge increase in labor intensive exports, job creation and wage growth. And the conditions are ripe. This time is ripe. Why? Because right now exports are doing well. The capital inflows are there, and the reserves are accumulating. Then similarly for the direct tax code, a simple, economically rational direct tax code which incorporates global best practice is very necessary from a macro perspective, because it will reduce the cost of doing business for MSMEs. And therefore level the playing field for MSMEs with respect to corporates. Hark back to what I just said about corporate tax reform. An excellent reform, but it has given an extra leg up to the corporates. The corporates have suffered less from the pandemic. They are doing very well. Their revenues are increasing. Their profits are increasing. So we need to level the playing field for the micro, small and medium enterprises by doing a similar reform of the direct tax code, which really forms a tax basis for all these self-employed people and small enterprises. So conclusion, the relationship between reforms and growth. So in my view, the major big bang reforms which are happening, which have happened, and if they continue, because they must continue the reforms in letter and spirit and maximize the geo-economic opportunity from supply chain shifts. A lot is happening, but we need to continue. For example, plug the weaknesses in the reforms of the GST, the direct tax code, and the customs code, and also to minimize the risk from potentially slower GDP growth, which may happen from 2023 onwards. And if we continue on this path, I'm confident that the expected outcome, the GDP growth, as I predicted for many months, for the current financial year will be 10% plus minus 1%. I predicted double-digit growth about a year ago for this year, and as I said, if the reforms are continued in letter and spirit, then growth for the decade as a whole, the decade of the 2020s, which is 21 to 30, could be as high as 7.5%, with of course some margin of error of 0.5%. So between 7 and 8% average over this decade is possible. Thank you.